Welcome back to another edition of the Saturday to Sunday Football Podcast. I am Paul Perdichizzi, and thank you for joining me. As always, week 3 of the college football season is in the books. Week 2 of the NFL season has concluded. Here at Saturday to Sunday, we will break down everything that we saw from the top college prospects on Saturday and the rookie prospects on Sunday. If you missed last week's episode, I apologize for the mishap. I recorded on YouTube. I thought it was put up onto the podcast feeds, but I just realized moments ago that for whatever reason, it did not load up to the podcast feeds. So you're going to see retroactive the week 2 NFL draft report in your podcast feeds. And then a day later, you'll see the week 3. I highly recommend going back and listening to the week 2 report because I did talk about all the rookies from week 1 of the NFL season. I hit on a really interesting Dynasty Fantasy stock report in terms of some guys stock up, stock down for your Dynasty leagues. And I talked about everything of relevance from week 2 of the college football season as well. So today, turn the page, week 3 of the college football season. Let's get right into the NFL draft report. Let's start with the quarterbacks, where basically every week I feel like we can analyze what goes on with these quarterback prospects and kind of analyze what we see this past week. A couple of things that really stood out. Let's go right back to the Arch Manning conversation. Against UTEP, 27-10 victory. Arch looked very shaky, 114 yards, 1 touchdown, 1 interception. Right now, it's hard to feel like we're going to include him in that draft class for next year. But I'm not adjusting my rankings just yet. I'm not going to start. I told you I was going to wait at least through the month of September. So much of those draft projections and those scouting reports are projecting what may happen down the line by draft season and for their rookie seasons in their NFL and their NFL career. I know Arch has not looked good, but if we just rewinded a year ago, he came on for Quinn Ewers last year, looked good in his performances. We know he's got the physical traits, so I'm not gonna bury him already. Do I think he's going to be in the 2026 NFL draft? Probably not. The rest of the season would have to go very differently for that to happen. And even then, there was always talk of even if he had a great year, he still might have went back to college. But we will continue to check in on Arch Manning. I think we will start to see him. I really do wonder if he's playing through some type of injury that he's able to play with, but not playing at the level that we saw last year, not living up to the traits that he possesses, because right now it has been a very slow and shaky start for Arch Manning. Carson Beck for now Miami this past week, 23 of 28, 340 yards and 3 touchdowns. We are seeing Carson Beck. He did have some decision-making issues that's always kind of pop up with Carson Beck's game over the last 2 years. But Beck has definitely put himself back on the radar as other quarterbacks, Arch, other guys have struggled in the early portion of this season. Carson Beck is kind of putting himself at least back in the consideration to be maybe one of the top 5 to top 10 quarterback prospects in the 2026 NFL draft. We know he's got the physical traits. We know he's got the savvy, a lot of game experience. So it's going to be interesting to kind of see how Carson Beck performs the rest of this year and how he can re-elevate his draft stock. Garrett Nussmeier, who many people after week 1 was already crowning, he's going to be the guy. He's going to be the number 1 quarterback in the 2026 NFL draft. 15 of 27, 220 yards. They did get the victory over Florida, but only 1 touchdown, 1 interception. He's not looking like the guy who would be a borderline top tier prospect either. But I still think the decision-making, the mental processing, the quarterbacking skills from Nussmeier is still probably more further advanced than anybody else right now eligible to come out in the 2026 NFL draft. So I do believe that he's a guy who's still going to be highly regarded. You see some Tony Romo to his game. So Nussmeier is a guy that will continue to check in yet, but he hasn't taken the first couple weeks of the season and kind of separated himself, kind of like Jordan Tyson has done at the wide receiver position of being the guy. That we have not seen from Garrett Nussmeier just yet. Cade Klubnik, another guy who was highly regarded before the season started as a potential Heisman candidate, a potential guy who could be a top 5 or top 10 pick in the NFL draft. Clemson goes down to Georgia Tech this past week, 207 yards, only 1 touchdown and 1 interception. He is off to a very shaky start. this season. And I think right now he's the guy, and I don't want to define anything, but if there was one guy that besides like maybe Arch, but he was so inexperienced, I think a lot of people thought we were going to see Cade Klubnik take the next step and become a top 10 caliber prospect. We have not seen that just yet. I want to bring up quarterback Joey Aguilar out of Tennessee. 371 yards and 4 touchdowns in that game versus Georgia. Looked really impressive, starting to put his name on the map a little bit. So he's a guy I want to watch some more film on. And then Lenora Sellers, who's considered one of the top prospects in the 2026 NFL draft for those raw physical traits. Concussion this past week, left the game. We'll kind of see what transpires with that in terms of him moving forward. So that's the quarterback position in terms of what I thought stood out from week 3. Let's move this over to the running back landscape and then talk some of the pass catchers as well. Let's start at the running back position. Damon Claiborne out of Wake Forest, 35 yards rushing only, but a touchdown, 8 catches. He's got the versatility to impact the game as a receiver and a runner. It wasn't a gaudy stat production, but this is a down running back class. So Claiborne offers a dual versatility set. So he's a guy that stands out. And I'm interested to kind of see what running backs kind of emerge this year and maybe put themselves on the map to be in that top 50 mix. I think Claiborne offers a unique skill set, but I'm not sure right now anybody's going to be a top 50 running back prospect besides Jeremiah Love, who we'll get to momentarily. But Claiborne is one of those guys who would definitely be in the consideration in that round 3, round 4 territory. Next up, the Penn State duo. Obviously, inferior competition this week, but did want to acknowledge Nicholas Singleton and Katron Allen. Nicholas Singleton, 84 yards and 2 touchdowns. Katron Allen, 86 yards and 1 touchdown. We know what they are. Nicholas Singleton, I think, has a real shot to be a top 100 pick. I think Katron Allen is probably ticketed for like a round 4 to round 6 pick. Different style players. Allen, physical, tough, interior runner. Singleton, big-time explosiveness and athleticism, can get to the perimeter, more of an explosive, but less in terms of the natural run instincts. That's still an area where Singleton has to improve upon. Le'Veon Moss, 81 yards and 3 touchdowns versus Notre Dame this week. He's a guy that could put himself on the map, similar to Claiborne, to be a top 100 pick. Interested to kind of see the rest of him this year. Texas A&M with the big win against Notre Dame that kind of puts them in the spotlight a little bit. Moss is an interesting player. He can run inside. He can get to the outside. Again, this class at the running back group is just so different than what we saw last year. But Le'Veon Moss obviously in the mix. And then Jeremiah Love, I know last time we talked about he had kind of got off to a slow start this year. But this past week in that game versus Texas A&M, 94 yards, 1 touchdown, 4 catches, 53 yards, and 1 touchdown. So he's showing that versatility. He's showing the ability to impact the game in a variety of ways. He could be a receiver. He could be a runner. He could be the foundation of an offense. I think you're going to still see him as a late round 1 to early round 2 prospect, and could even push his way into the mix to be earlier in round 1, because I do think for the skill positions, it is lacking. So somebody might look at Jeremiah Love and think he could be the final piece of the offense, a foundational type running back, and maybe push him up the board a little bit. If we take this to the wide receivers, Jeremy Bernard out of Alabama, 4 catches, 62 yards, and 1 touchdown. Bernard continues to kind of build each week. He had a lot of buzz in the pre-draft process. There was a lot of evaluators that were very high on him. And I think so far he has lived up to the billing to be a guy that could be in consideration late round 1 to early to mid round 2. Eric Singleton, we know the explosive, undersized slot wide receiver, 6 catches, 65 yards, hasn't had a breakout monster performance. But Singleton is that guy that is going to intrigue teams. We've seen somebody like Wan'Dale Robinson have his career games the last 2 weeks. Singleton offers more explosiveness than a guy like Wan'Dale Robinson, who was drafted in the 2nd round. I think Singleton will be ticketed for somewhere on day 2. Next up, the USC duo, Jacoby Lane, Makai Lemon. Lane this past week, 3 catches, 115 yards. If you're looking for that contested catch, go up and get it, adjust to the catch point, red zone weapon, that would be Jacoby Lane. And then Mekhi Lemon, 5 catches, 63 yards. Another one of those slot guys who can do a lot from the inside. He's got inside-outside versatility. He can get vertical. He can make things happen after the catch. So Lemon is a guy who I think is going to be another one of those guys ticketed for somewhere on day 2. Next up, Zachariah Branch. We know how highly regarded he was when he ended up at USC. Didn't really live up to the hype there, but we're starting to see big-time production from Branch. We're starting to see that playmaker mentality that he offers. I think he's going to be a guy that elevates his stock a lot this season, and NFL teams are highly intrigued by him. The big play, explosiveness, that instant acceleration, game-breaking ability that he offers. And then Casey Concepcion, we've talked about him almost every episode. 4 catches, 82 yards. I think he's starting to re-elevate himself to be back into the mix, to be one of the top prospects at the wide receiver position in an overall down year. But Concepcion, he's got the athleticism. He's got the route running chops, good understanding of route concepts. I like what he brings to the table. Inside, outside versatility. He can play a variety of different wide receiver formations, and I think that will intrigue NFL teams at the next level. And then tight end, Kenyon Sadiq, he's just a playmaker. He's not a traditional tight end. He's going to be a slot guy. He's going to be a mismatch nightmare. We saw a big play from him this past weekend, 2 catches, 35 yards. Right now, he's not putting up gaudy stats, but he's a guy that has round 1 caliber talent at the tight end position as an athletic pass catching tight end. So Sadiq should be on everybody's radar. So that's kind of it. The NFL draft report, I got to be honest with you, especially with the skill players, I do feel like it's kind of been lacking in terms of a lot to talk about here in the early going of the college football season. But right now, like we'll keep checking in. We'll evaluate after a few more weeks. I'll start adjusting my rankings a little bit. I'll start adding a few guys to the scouting notebook and then start adjusting rankings accordingly for what I am seeing on Saturdays. Next up, let's take this to the NFL game. Let's start with the quarterback position. Cam Ward, this past week, second game of his career, 19 of 33 yards, 175 yards, and 1 touchdown. A little bit better than week 1. We're seeing glimpses of what makes Cam Ward an intriguing talent. His ability, his escapability, his ability to play off structure, to throw on the run. Right now, Tennessee's had a tough start to their season. It was Denver week 1. It was the Rams week 2. Been no favors for Cam Ward. While the offensive line is solid, Tony Pollard hasn't been able to get going too much. They've been put at a pretty big disadvantage. Obviously, besides Calvin Ridley, lacking some playmakers, even though another guy I'm going to talk about, like Iomanner, has looked pretty good so far. I think Cam Ward's we're going to see a gradual build as the year goes on in terms of what type of player he can be as he's getting acclimated to the NFL game. At the running back position, a lot of guys to talk about. Let's start with the top 2, Ashton Jeanty and Omarion Hampton. Ashton Jeanty, 11 carries, 43 yards. Right now, the next gen type stats look really poor too in terms of like him making people miss, in terms of yards before contact. Everything right now for Ashton Jeanty is not looking good. I think it's just a early poor start to his career, and he will adjust accordingly, and we will see the big-time playmaker that we saw at Boise State. But again, the level of competition at Boise State that he faced was a lot different than the NFL. And I'm not going to sit here and say I think that's going to be a factor in him not living up to the hype. I think Ashton Jeanty is going to be a big-time NFL player, but right now the adjustment is so stark compared to what he saw. The speed at which he's seeing compared to what he saw when he was playing for Boise State is significantly different for sure. So an early start, a slow start to the early portion of his career. I think we will still see him be impactful this year. The Raiders do have limitations in terms of their overall upside. So it's not like he was dropped into a pristine situation to hit the ground running. On the flip side, Omarion Hampton is in a pretty good situation. Big-time quarterback in Justin Herbert, Ladd McConkey there. Keenan Allen's looked good in his return to the Chargers. Quentin Johnson, who I'll talk about later, has been coming on. I know they lost, one of their big time offensive tackles, but they still got Joe Alt. They still got a functional to above average offensive line. Omarion Hampton, 8 carries, 24 yards. So a very slow start to Omarion Hampton's career, even though the Chargers have looked good as a team. Travion Henderson, very slow start. I thought this week, after week 1, the Patriots lacking a lot on offense, I thought Henderson was going to be a big part of the offense this week. He only had 5 touches. 3 carries for 10 yards, 2 catches for 30 yards. Those numbers for Henderson, I was expecting right out of the gate to see 13 to 15 touches for Travion Henderson. Quinshon Judkins, his former teammate, once he got cleared, most people didn't even think he was going to play this week. Not only does he play, he jumps right into the mix. 10 carries, 61 yards, 3 catches for 10 yards. Now this week already moved up to number 1 on the depth chart. So they are just putting in Quinshon Judkins and riding him. No training camp, no preseason games, didn't play week 1, and then they threw him into the fire in week 2. And I think you're going to see a heavy dose of Quinshon Judkins. Dylan Sampson, more change of pace, pass catching back, but Judkins is going to be the clear guy. We know the type of interior explosive ability between the tackles that he offers, the leg drive, the contact balance. Not a great situation or a great offense right there with the Browns, but I think Judkins is going to get a lot of usage this year in the role that Cleveland's going to ask him to play. Caleb Johnson just can't get on the football field. Then he had a special teams gaffe this week, didn't know the rules. So right now, Caleb Johnson really off to a slow start. Can he bury himself out of like the doghouse almost right now and get some consistent playing time? Bashal Tuden, now with the trade of Tank Bigsby out of Jacksonville, Bashal Tuden steps into a bigger role this past week. 8 carries, 42 yards, 2 catches, 32 yards, and a touchdown. If you didn't take my advice in your rookie drafts, if you didn't take my advice before the NFL draft even happened, go get Bashal Tuden on your dynasty teams now. It's a matter of when, not if. He's going to take the job from Travis Etienne. He's going to be their lead back. He's going to be their best fantasy back. And I think he's going to be the lead of that backfield for years to come. I am that high on Bashal Tuden. Get him on your roster now. I think it's a matter of when, not if, he takes over this year as the lead portion of that team. RJ Harvey off to a very slow start for the Broncos. Right now, they're riding J.K. Dobbins. Harvey, I know, had that one big run week 1. This past week, only 6 touches, not very involved in the offense. Tyler Bidet also getting usage as the 3rd running back, which is hindering the opportunities for RJ Harvey. We need to get that down to a 2-man backfield and Harvey to at least see 10 to 12 touches a week. Cam Scatterbo might already be taking the job of lead back from Tyrone Tracy. 11 carries, 45 yards, got his first touchdown, 2 catches for 14 yards, and played way ahead of Tyrone Tracy. I don't know if that was anything due to Tyrone Tracy's comments about not running the ball enough in week 1, if it was just riding the hot hand, if the depth chart is already changed. But Cam Scatterbo, another guy I was high on, already moving up the depth chart and seeing considerable amount of work in his 2nd week of the NFL season and of his career. Ja'Cory Krosky-Merritt last week, Washington, Green Bay on Thursday night. Washington could not get much going on offense. Ja'Cory Krosky-Merritt only 4 touches. Now Austin Eckler out the year can open up more opportunity for Ja'Cory Krosky-Merritt, but probably going to be a lot of Jerry McNichols. So I just don't think it's going to be JCM as the lead guy. I think he's going to be more of the interior, early down runner, and then McNichols will kind of take over the role of Austin Eckler. If we take this to the pass catchers, let's start at the tight end. Harold Fannin continues to be a big part of that Browns offense. 5 catches, 48 yards, playing a lot. He's basically their 3rd option or 4th option in the passing game. You have Jerry Jeudy, you have Cedric Tillman, you have David Njoku. Harold Fannin is basically like lining up and being used as their 3rd wide receiver and also part-time tight end. I think we're going to see a big-time production. I would almost be surprised if we didn't see David Njoku moved before the deadline. Cleveland's not going anywhere this year. He's a free agent after the year. I think they're going to want to open up the position for Harold Fannin, and we expect to see him be the lead guy full-time by later in the year if David Njoku is moved. If not, then definitely by next season. Tyler Warren continues to be an integral part of that Colts offense. 4 catches, 79 yards, finding ways to get him the ball. We knew that there was a plan for him in place, but I think it's even greater than what we expected in terms of how much they're trying to feed him the ball and get him touches. And then Colson Loveland, no catches this past week. Cole Kmet's playing far ahead of him. It's really tough to see what's going on in Chicago. Caleb Williams doesn't look right. Ben Johnson's got to have some buyer's remorse already for taking that job. They drafted Luther Burden in the top of the second round. He's barely playing. They drafted Colston Loveland at pick 10. He's barely playing. I'm still a believer in both Colston Loveland and Luther Burden, but they do not have these star-studded players playing above him. Omea Zacchaeus and Cole Kmet, those are guys that can be replaced and should be replaced, especially when the Bears are struggling on offense. Caleb doesn't look good. You literally invested the 10th overall pick in an early second rounder on these two guys to add to DJ Moore and Cole and Rome Odunze. Those should be your four weapons, and give Caleb Williams every opportunity for his playmakers to create separation early, because the O-line is still very much lacking, and obviously some of the decision-making and inconsistency that Williams has showed as well. But got to find a way to get Loveland the ball. In terms of the wide receivers, I mentioned his name before, Alec Iomanner, off to a really good start, won the starting job for Tennessee right out of the gate in week 1, 4 catches, 56 yards, and a touchdown now in week 2. He's going to be locked in. You're going to see production from Iomanner the rest of the year. It's going to be him and Caleb Williams, a little bit of Chigakonkwo, but Iomanner looks like he's going to become one of the steals of that draft. A lot of people thought he should have been a round 2 or round 3 pick. I was more late round 3, early round 4. He fell to round 4. There was some wide receivers taken definitely, but I'm sorry, he fell to late round 4. They took Shamiri Dike early in the day 3. That was a stunner for me, but Iomanner is starting to live up to what some people really liked about his game as a traditional outside X wide receiver. Isaac Tesla, I know he's not playing much, but every time he gets on the field, all he does is make some acrobatic, incredible catch. Tesla is another guy right now because he's not putting up gaudy production because they re-signed Jamison Williams. They have Amon-Ra, they have Laporta, they have Jahmyr Gibbs. It wouldn't take a lot to get Isaac Tesla. I would want to go get him on my dynasty teams right now, because I think as the year goes on and he gets more playing time, his value is only going to increase, and he's going to be harder and harder to come by in trades. Emeka Egbuka for the second week in a row, finding the pylon, 4 catches, 29 yards, and a touchdown. Tet McMillan continues. Even though the Panthers offense as a whole has looked very lackluster, Tet McMillan continues to really impress. 6 catches, 100 yards, integral part of that offense right now. If Bryce Young could start playing better and get back to what we saw at the end of last year, you would see Tet McMillan, his value in terms of fantasy and production level probably even skyrocket a little more. Luther Burden, I mentioned before, barely playing, 1 catch, 5 yards. Jaden Higgins right now playing behind like Hutchinson there for the Texans. He's got to get on the field. They got to get Jalen Noel on the field. A lot of wide receivers right now are kind of a little bit buried on the depth chart who were day 2, round 2, or round 3 picks. I'm kind of surprised hasn't had a chance based on what's already there. If you have a well-established wide receiver duo or trio, I understand some of these guys not getting an opportunity, but when you do not, I feel like these guys should be getting more of an opportunity to produce. Next up, let's take this to the Fantasy Dynasty Report for this week. I want to start with stock up on a guy that I talked about a lot on the Dynasty ranking show, and I want to start with Tucker Kraft, because I said it on the Dynasty ranking show. I said it on Twitter. I think a year from now, Tucker Kraft is considered a top 6 tight end in Dynasty. Well, you know what? I think I might not even have hyped him up enough. I think there's a real possibility after this year. We're talking Tyler Warren, Brock Bowers, and then I think there's a real Trey McBride. I think there's a real chance we could see a guy like Tucker Kraft very much in that mix as tight end 4, 5 in Dynasty if this year continues. This guy's got some George Kittle-like vibes in terms of he's a dual tight end. He can block, he can receive, he can make things happen after the catch, he can win in the red zone. Great performance from Tucker Kraft, 6 catches, 124 yards, and a touchdown this past week. If people are still not treating him like a locked in top 8, 10 Dynasty tight end, go get him right now on your Dynasty teams. Another player, stock up on, Rome Odunze. Rome Odunze is starting to look like the player that was in the same tier as Malik Neighbors and Marvin Harrison Jr. in last year's pre-draft process. He plays different than especially Malik Neighbors, but he doesn't play that different than a guy like Marvin Harrison. And what we've seen from Rome Odunze so far this year is better than anything we've seen out of Marvin Harrison. So I think we're starting to see the guy that was very comparable to Marvin Harrison in last year's draft class. More winning at the catch point, late separation than precise route running and speed. So Odunze is a guy, again, make sure he's being properly valued. I felt like his stock kind of came down a little bit following his poor rookie year, but make sure he's being valued as a top 15 to 20 wide receiver in dynasty leagues. If not, jump on that and get him on your roster. Stock up on Quentin Johnston. I can't believe I'm saying this, but he looks tremendous right now. The Chargers are humming. Keenan Allen looks like he's turned back the clock. Ladd McConkey, we know, is a stud. But right now, Ladd McConkey is not even putting up studly stats because Keenan Allen's being great, and Quentin Johnston just keeps making plays. This past week, 3 catches, 71 yards. If Quentin Johnston is kind of finding his way now in the NFL, a former top 20 pick, and Allen's got a little bit left in the tank, and we know how good Ladd McConkey is, and then they drafted Trey Harris in the second round, and then we saw glimpses in the preseason of what Lambert Smith could offer as a downfield vertical playmaker. The Chargers really might have something cooking here with this passing offense. They look like they're going to go way more pass-oriented than run-oriented. So right now, stock up on Quentin Johnston. You still probably can get him very cheap because people still don't believe that what they're seeing could be legitimate. Next up, stock up on Daniel Jones, another one. I can't believe I'm saying it, but right now Shane Steichen is getting Daniel Jones to play the best football of his career. I understand week 1 was against the Colts. Week 2 was against the Denver Broncos. 23 of 34, 316 yards and a passing touchdown on top of the rushing touchdown. If he is going to start putting up 250 to 300 in passing and be able to keep drives going on top of his athleticism and rushing ability, you understand why the Giants were intrigued with him. You understand why at times he looked like he could be a guy that could offer more. It was just so inconsistent in New York, and they can never be consistent with the passing offense. He never was putting up these type of numbers in terms of passing. We knew he could run. We knew he can be a red zone weapon in that regard. But if he's now starting to come along in the passing game, and you can get him to be a 250 to 300 type yard passer on top of the rushing, on top of the touchdown, running ability inside the red zone, you're talking about a very fantasy viable guy. If he has a good year, he could really be locked in there and get a real chance to be the Colts starter for a couple years. We've seen guys. We've seen Geno Smith evolve later in his career. We've seen Sam Darnold. Now, Daniel Jones started a lot of years for the Giants, but if Shane Steichen gets the best out of him, we could see Daniel Jones have another resurgence and get another opportunity to be a locked-in starter. Here he had to go battle with Anthony Richardson. He won the job. Right now, it's looking real smart. The Colts chose Daniel Jones over Anthony Richardson. Next up, stock up on Jordan Mason. He already was in a good situation there with Minnesota. They wanted him. They traded for him. They wanted him to play an integral role there alongside Aaron Jones. Now Aaron Jones is injured for a while. Jordan Mason steps up. He's got a real opportunity to put a really good stat line for about a month potentially. And I think if he could potentially run away with that lead role there for the Vikings, so stock up on Mason. Some stock down. Oh, one more stock up. Trey Franklin. Former Bo Nix teammate there at Oregon. Denver drafted him last year. A lot of buzz in the fantasy Twitter community because they like Troy Franklin coming out of college. They thought Denver got a steal where he fell. Didn't do much last year, but this past week, 8 catches, 89 yards and a touchdown. We are starting to see glimpses of that prolific playmaker that Bo Nix had in college. So he won't cost much right now, but I'm telling you, it's a down rookie class. If you can go get a traded 3rd-round pick for Troy Franklin, I think it's a smart move, maybe even a late second if you really believe in Franklin's talent and think that he could emerge to be the second option there for that Broncos passing offense and get above guys like Marvin Mims and anyone else they brought in over the last year. If he can be the second guy after Courtland Sutton, that would be something that you want to kind of get stock in right now. Stock down, a couple players I want to talk about. One is talk about Rome Odunze. I think his teammate DJ Moore. I think Moore could be on the outs in Chicago. I wouldn't be surprised if he's traded somewhere before the deadline. So I think right now we don't know the unknown of where DJ Moore could end up. He could end up in a great spot. He could end up with a team not really believing in him. You never really know with a trade. But right now, where DJ Moore was not that long ago, I think it's got to be considered stock down. Xavier Legette. With Coker getting injured and going on IR, there was a huge opportunity for Xavier Legette to lock himself in as the second option in that passing offense for the Panthers, and Xavier Legette has done nothing with that opportunity. I think he's going to lose a lot of playing time when Jalen Coker comes back, and right now you just wonder if they wasted that early round pick last year on Xavier Legette We know they need to surround Bryce Young with a better supporting cast. They were hoping Xavier Leggett could take that step in year 2. So far, does not seem like he is going to be able to. So there it is, guys. Dynasty Fantasy Report for week 2 of the NFL season, NFL Rookie Report for week 2 of the NFL season, and then the NFL Draft Report for week 3 of the college football season. If you're enjoying this content, please get over to the website, S2S Football, fastest and easiest way to get there. Check out the premium content tab for $9.99. Now is the best time to purchase the notebooks. You have access to it the entire college football season. You see my changes. You see my adjustments. And then obviously pre-draft process, we do a ton of work, converting it to more of like an offensive draft guide for the skill players. I add so many players. I adjust my scouting reports, adjust my draft projections. You get the rankings notebook, which has all my rankings. It has my rookie rankings from last year updated. It has everything from this year's rookie class. It'll have tiers for the 2026 guys. It'll have new Dynasty rookie rankings for the 2026 class. It has Devy rankings. It has positional Dynasty rankings. You find all of that in the rankings notebook. And then you get the draft projections notebook. That comes out in April. Tabs for every position, offense and defense, big boards for projecting the top 32, top 100, and every pick in the draft. Tremendous success on that. Over 400 players in there. Quick snapshot of how they win, strengths, developmental areas, their measurements from the combine or their pro days, and their combine testing numbers. Put in the order in which we expect them to come off the board. That comes out in April. Again, if you didn't get a chance to listen to week 2, please help me out. At least download it on your podcast app. I don't know why it didn't load up last week, but I didn't realize it because I knew it was on YouTube, which most of our listeners, though, do still come from the podcast feeds. So it wasn't out on the podcast feed for the whole week. It came out last Monday. So it had been out there, for 9 or 10 days, and no one got an opportunity to listen to it. So now you're going to see both of these, week 2 and week 3, kind of come out back to back on 2 consecutive days. Please, if you can, help me out. Download week 2, even if you don't get an opportunity to listen to it and you just want to listen to week 3, at least download both of them, preferably subscribe so just auto downloads. But help me out if you can, because just for the algorithms and stuff, no one really got an opportunity to listen to the one from last week. It's not really outdated. I talked about a lot of different prospects. The Dynasty Fantasy Report was all different prospects from week 1 of the NFL season. The rookie report for week 1 talked about a lot of different guys. Then the rookies I talked about on this week's episode. So please get back, check out the week 2 NFL draft report and the rookie report for week 1 of the NFL season. That dropped tonight, unfortunately. It was supposed to drop like 9-10 days ago. And then check out the new one as well. So on behalf of our sound tech engineer, David Nakano, and myself, thank you for joining us. And we look forward next time taking you from Saturday to Sunday.